and it was fascinating. I learned a lot. And that's what they're here to do today, is to give pretty much the exact presentation they gave to us back in October. So we just wanted to share that. I won't steal all the thunder on everything else, but we're really excited just to show off all the things that we learned and all the things that they do. And I'm sure you're going to learn a lot. So the other thing is there's a lot to the presentation. So if you could wait to the end and we can do some questions at the end. That works. All right.
Thank you, Maureen. Want to thank Maureen and the entire board for having us here tonight. We appreciate the invitation to do this presentation. My name is Sam Hyde. I've been the chief here for about 2 years. Prior to that, I was a deputy chief for about 3. I've been part of the leadership of this department since about 2016. And actually go all the way back to about 1997 when I first moved here. I became part of this fire department way back then. It was actually on the fire of the original clubhouse when it burned way back then. So I have a lot of history here, and this fire department means a lot to me. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I especially appreciate Arnold Joseph when Arnold became our liaison. Arnold spent countless hours with us. He asked questions. He spent time learning what we do as a fire department. He spent committee hours. And part of this presentation is a result of those questions asked, because there was a lot of questions about our fire department, what we do, and why we're here. And a lot of legitimate, very good questions were asked. And this presentation is a result of that. And so I appreciate all you as residents being here as our neighbors. And we look forward to sharing this with you. So what we'll do is I want to share the presentation with you. It talks a lot about just the mechanics of our fire department, why we're here, some important aspects of the fire service, the EMS side of it. I hope it answers a lot of questions. We're going to do a quick presentation after that, talk about our golf tournament, what some of that is all about. So after that, hopefully, we'll try to save some time to answer some questions at that point. So with that said, some of those questions that come up, some of the most misunderstood and some of the greatest questions we get is the fire versus EMS question, EMS being emergency medical services. Not unlike about every fire department in the US, we respond to every medical call. We go to every call that an ambulance goes on. And so what are the specifics behind that and how does that work? I want to explain that because that's an important part of what we do. So fire versus EMS. So when a 911 call comes into the 911 center in Carroll County, whether it's a medical call or a fire, they're going to dispatch the fire department and an ambulance. So there's 2 aspects to that, and understanding the difference in those helps a lot of times to see what our job is, why we're here, and how that relates to the EMS side of it. So talk about EMS just a little bit. So there are 2 different governing agencies over fire and EMS in the state of Georgia. EMS is governed by the Georgia Department of Public Health. There's compliance, there's licensing, and it is operated through what's called the Regional Ambulance Zoning Plan. And so we couldn't just go out, a person can't just go out and say, I want to start an ambulance and begin responding to 911 calls. There's a lot to that. There's a lot of compliance. There's a lot of issues. I want to talk about some of those. So this response district or this area, that license is owned by West Georgia Ambulance Service out of Carrollton. They have 6 emergency ambulances in service at any given time. We're hoping to see them add more, but right now there's 6 in the entire county of Carroll. It is ground ambulance. So this is the side of it that's transport. As a fire department, we don't do any transport. That's all part of the ambulance side of the EMS picture. There are compliance and licensing issues that come along with that. And in other words, it's a higher level than what we can offer as a fire department. It involves medication and IV fluids, which is a whole nother license. It requires a paramedic. It requires a pharmacy because of all medications that they carry on an ambulance. They have to have a pharmacy. That's another license that they look at from that level, from a ground ambulance level. Now, what happens is, because there's only 6 ambulances in the county, it's not uncommon that those response times are 20 to 25 minutes in Fairfield Plantation. That's really countywide. Those ambulances get moved. Sometimes they may have to take a patient to Emory or to Atlanta, any of those hospitals. So that takes them out of the county. It's not uncommon for any of the fire departments in this county, which we share the frequency, our radio frequency, we share with Carroll County and the city of Carrollton. So not only do they hear our calls, we hear theirs. So we kind of know what's going on in the county from sort of hour by hour. And it's not uncommon for them to tell us, I don't have you an ambulance right now. And so a lot of times they go out and they look at mutual aid, they look at other counties, look at Harrelson and Douglas and Coweta to try to get an ambulance to respond. So that's not uncommon. That sounds extreme, but that's actually very common for us to see an ambulance that have a response time of 20 to 25 minutes. So that's a little bit about the EMS side. So that ambulance is coming regardless of whether it's West Georgia or that's provided through mutual aid from another county. So let's talk about the fire side. So the fire side is governed by the Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training Council. As a fire department, we're a compliant fire department with the state of Georgia. And so with that becomes all of the legal responsibilities, all of the emergency powers. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want you to sort of see some of the capabilities on the fire side, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how that relates to EMS. So on the fire side, obviously, a structure fire is our number one. It is our number one preparedness. We have all the gear. We have 2 fire engines that are in service, which we're required by ISO. We're licensed, or we're compliant to have 2 fire engines and 2 fire stations. And they are completely compliant with the state of Georgia. They come out basically every other year, and they look at our equipment, they look at our training records, they look at our trucks, and they look at our stations, and they say Fairfield Plantation is compliant for another period of time. And they check that. And so that comes with a lot of things. And so obviously firefighting is our number one thing. That's what we do. We're firefighters first and foremost. So we do everything we can do to be prepared for a structure fire. Vehicle accidents. We respond to all vehicle accidents. A vehicle accident can, even when sometimes if it's not a serious accident, they're not serious injuries. Anytime there's fluids involved, whether it's brake fluid, transmission fluid, engine oil, that kind of thing, it's a fire hazard. And it's not uncommon for us to have to put out a fire before we can call that scene safe. That's actually pretty common, even sometimes with an accident that's not involving serious injuries. A vehicle fire. Vehicle fires can be very dangerous, and not only that, if it's parked near a house, a vehicle fire can very quickly become a house fire, or any other building that might be close to even other vehicles. And so obviously we stay very prepared for vehicle fires. A brush fire. Brush fires and grass fires oftentimes seem very minor, but they can be extremely dangerous at times, especially when they're close to a house. If we get called to a brush fire and it's near a house, then we ask for a full response. So we treat that like a house fire until we get there. And let me say this about the 911 system. Those 911 dispatchers, they only know what the caller has told them on the other end of the line. And so a lot of times we don't really know what we're getting into or what we have until we get there on the scene and actually put boots on the ground to understand what's going on. Sometimes we respond to a 911 call, and it may seem very minor, and it turns out to be very serious. And the opposite happens too. But we never know for sure until we get there. So we have to treat everything like it's a true emergency until we get there and see what's happening. Unauthorized burning, illegal burning, sometimes that can turn into more serious fires, but we enforce that. And that's part of what we do here in Fairfield. Forcible entry. A lot of people don't know this, but When we think about law enforcement, we tend to think about, the SWAT guys with the battering ram and getting into a house. A lot of times, if law enforcement is on a scene and it's not a felony type call that you would see with the battering ram, and they need to gain entry, maybe they haven't heard from the patient, a family member calls and they haven't heard from them in 2 or 3 days, and they need to get in and call the fire department. We're good at that. And we try to do it obviously with as little damage as possible, but forcible entry is an important part of what we do. A landing zone, hopefully everybody's familiar with our helicopter pad. It gets used quite a bit. And most of the time, being first on the scene, if we can get there a lot quicker than an ambulance, most of the time when we call for a helicopter, our personnel have already done that based on the initial assessment of the patient. And so we utilize that landing zone quite a bit. And that landing zone is also in a database. So if a helicopter is flying with a critical patient and the patient crashes, they can see on their system that there's a landing zone there and they can stop. Or God forbid the aircraft get into trouble, they have a safe place to land. And so that's why we're protective of our landing zone. That's why we ask people not to park any closer to it than you have to. We protect that landing zone because that is a very much a life-saving resource for us. Vehicle lockouts, a lot of departments don't do this. We do quite a few lockouts every month when people lock their keys in the car. Hazardous materials, we don't think about that as much in Fairfield, but just a fuel truck turning over on the way to the marina can very quickly turn into a hazardous material situation. And so there is there's a regional hazmat truck in Carrollton. We do have that resource to call upon if we need to, but still it's an important part of our training, an important part of what we do, because we don't know when we're going to need it. A boating accident. We have had some fairly serious boating accidents. Thankfully, it's been a while, but we're prepared for that. We're trained for that. Also along the same lines as a boat fire. With the increased boat traffic, we have more and more boats on the lake every year, it seems. It's just a matter of time until we have a boat fire. We do have the rescue boat does have a fire pump on it. We train with it pretty regularly. We actually probably, if we had a boat floating, we would probably try to work to get that to shore because we can be more effective. But that's a very real concern, especially around the marina or dock fire. Some of you folks may have seen some of the marina fires last year where, one boat catches on fire and with all the fuel and fiberglass, it grows pretty quickly. And so that's something that we try to stay prepared for. Prepare for war and pray for peace. Hope we don't have to get to that point, but it's a very real threat. Power lines down. That's something we see quite often in Fairfield with some of the storms that we've had. Thankfully, we haven't had one in the last couple of years where a lot of trees are down, or a lot of lines are down. That is a very dangerous situation. We've actually had to honestly fight off residents from going out and cut trees off the lines because they're wanting to be helpful, and sometimes it's pretty overwhelming to the fire department. That's a very dangerous thing, and oftentimes we stage a unit there or some of our guys to protect that, so that because we don't know honestly when those lines are off. We can guess, but we can't know for sure. Trees down blocking the road. When we have storms, it's not unusual for our guys to be out 24, 36, 48 hours cutting trees off the road. So our number one priority when that happens is to clear the roads for emergency vehicles. We can't cut trees out of residents' yards. It's mostly just clearing roads and opening up for emergency vehicles. But a big part of what we do. Thankfully, we hadn't had to do that lately. Tree down on a house. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. We don't cut the tree off the house, but obviously we have to mitigate the risks that are there. If there's live power lines, that's a fire risk. A lot of times we have to make sure the residents are safe. Oftentimes we help them make the phone calls and find somewhere to go if they have to. Something we see pretty regularly in Fairfield. Just overall rescue. We actually have recently applied for a grant for an ATV so that we are a side by side, so that we could respond to the walking trail or maybe the back of the dam. We've had people roll ankles, and thankfully, to date, no major broken legs or anything like that. But we're constantly looking for resources. We're constantly looking for ways to get better. So with all that, as a compliant fire department, with the emergency powers that we have, our guys, like every other fire department in the state of Georgia, we're no different. Our guys are eligible for the state firefighters pension fund. And so that helps us to attract more people, particularly on the volunteer side. Because even as a volunteer, when these guys get certified and they serve, in 20 years, they could retire with a state fire pension. So that's a big deal. That's something the state does for us, particularly small fire departments, to help us to attract people to help out and people to be a part of what we do. Now, also, what that allows us to do, this whole system, is to have volunteers. Currently, all but our rookie volunteers are certified firefighters. They're certified in the state of Georgia, just like any paid firefighter. They've gone through the training. It's about 240 hours to initially be certified to wear this gear to go in and actually fight fire. And so I'm going to say a little bit more about that as I move on through the presentation, because our volunteers are an incredible and just an asset that words just don't describe how important they are to this community. I've often said that this community doesn't really understand what it has in this fire department because of the hard work and some of the things that we do on a daily basis. So what all that does is allows us, what we've come to be known within the department as our response network. And I'll say a little bit about that as we move through, but it involves us volunteers. For the first time in recent history, all of our command staff were all residents. And so myself, Deputy Chief Dessa Winlet, and Captain Kevin War, our three top officers, we all live here. We're all residents, homeowners, and we're your neighbors. And so a lot of times what that means is we're never truly off because we're wearing radios. But it's a real plus for this fire department because of what it means to our response network, along with our volunteers. So it's very common for us to have 2 to 5 minute response times, whether it's fire or emergency medical. That's almost unheard of around the state of Georgia, and it's because of the response network that we have. We've been very creative with our personnel, with our officers, with the guys that work for us. A big part of our paid firefighters work for another fire department. Oftentimes they've already worked 24 hours, and then they come here and they work 24 hours. So some of that creativity has allowed us to do some pretty special things in our mind. So we got the fire and the EMS. I want to talk a little bit about what I call the middle ground. 2 years ago, we applied and obtained a medical first responder license. So what that does for us is we're licensed through the Department of Public Health with a medical first responder license. That gives us some capabilities and some things that we can do on a critical emergency medical scene to do some things that, normally wouldn't be done until the ambulance gets there. We can provide oxygen therapy, advanced airways during CPR, and we do CPR for us is 2 to 3 times a month. A lot of people get CPR certified and never have to do CPR, thankfully, but it's fairly regular for our fire department. Diabetic diagnostics, we'll do some suctioning. So what that means is, because we're licensed on both sides, we have to do a report on both sides. So on a fire call, we only have to do one report for firefighter standards and training. On a medical call, we have to do a fire report and a medical call. So there's a lot of reporting there. The state's very serious about that. We take it very serious. And so that's just part of what goes on in a day-to-day thing for our fire department. So there's always been a lot of talk about does Fairfield Fire Department need to be here? Or how does it relate to the EMS because there's an ambulance coming? So let me say a few things, first of all, about the ambulance. So as part of the regional ambulance zoning plan, Fairfield Plantation, unless there are major changes at the state and legislative level, we're not eligible to have an ambulance. That's not gonna, not only would it be incredibly expensive, even more so than a fire department, we just can't get there from here, from a legal standpoint. They look at these licenses in a greater regional aspect. There is licensing to the point that we would have to, not only would we have to have an ambulance, we'd have to have a backup ambulance if that one's gone, backup personnel. It's just an incredible thing for Fairfield to try to have an ambulance. So that at least in the foreseeable future, that's not going to be a part of what we do. So on the fire side, we've got so many capabilities already that we do every day on a day-to-day basis. If we weren't here, if we didn't have compliant fire engines in both those firehouses, then what we do is we lose our compliance with the state of Georgia. We lose our emergency powers, which means really that not any authority to respond to a 911 call would go away at that point. And so we really don't have anything. We could send a couple of guys out checking vitals, and that's about it. We would lose so many capabilities that we already have. And a lot of times we have people say, well, you know, why do you have to respond in a fire engine and another truck? Because we'll take all that capability with us. And more, we have multiple calls at once. And so I'll say a little bit about that in the section about our response network, but that's not uncommon for us to have firefighters on the scene taking care of a patient. Another call comes out and we handle that too. And so we're very proud of what we have here. And so I want to talk a little bit about response times. In a fire or other emergency, there's one thing that matters almost more than any other: response time. Every other aspect of the job firefighters perform hinges on the critically important factor of time. A few minutes could be the difference between preserving life and property or allowing it to be destroyed. So what we have here, this is a video that we want to share with you guys, and I want to explain it just a little bit before I start the video. This is put out by UL Underwriters Laboratories, who do a lot of certification, typically in the electrical industry. A lot of times you'll see a lamp or a toaster that has a UL certification on it. UL does these studies, and this study was done to show the difference in a room that was furnished the way that it would have been furnished, say, 30 years ago. A lot of cotton, a lot of wood, a lot of natural fibers. They compared that to the room of today with a lot of synthetic fibers, with all the carpets and the draperies and the synthetics and the foam and in the furniture. And so fires behave very differently today than they did 25, 30 years ago. So let's see if this video will play. Can you guys read that? All right, so I don't know if you can see it, but they've already ignited both couches in the corner. So they'll demonstrate how each one of these will perform with the dynamics of the fire. All right, we're at 2 minutes. All right, so that's at the 4-minute mark. I want to say a couple things and then we'll let the video continue to play. So as you see here, there's already what we term as a thermal layer growing in the room. So at the 4-minute mark, that response time means a lot. At that 4-minute mark, it's still survivable. Okay? So you may not know this, go back. So when people die in a house fire, more often than not, they don't die by the fire, they die by the superheated gases and the things that are going on in the room way before the fire ever reaches them. And so that's what those are. Try to fast forward back. Okay. Yep. All right, so we're still under the 5-minute mark. Time to flashover is 450. The definition of a flashover is when the entire contents of a room are on fire. That's not only is that not survivable by a homeowner, that we wouldn't survive that in this year. And so that's why response times are so important. That's why we need to be close and we need to get there quickly. Let's go ahead and let it play out. So you see, fires are very different than they were 25, 30 years ago. Very different. The dynamics are different. A homeowner with a good fire extinguisher could still put that one out at the 26 or 30-minute mark. That's not the case with the new synthetics. All right, go to the next one. You might have to do it for me. All right, so this is a graphic that's put out by the Fire Sprinkler Coalition. And so I want to share this because there's an important aspect to this. So when we talk about response times, we're talking about this window when the fire department is actually responding. So there's a part of this that this graphic captures that I want to share. And that is that, first of all, the fire has to be detected. Whoever's there, whether it's a neighbor, somebody's got to detect the fire before they know to call 911. So then they have to call 911. 911 is going to have the questions that they have to ask the caller. Location, is there anybody still inside? All those, it takes a little time. And then the dispatch time is about 2 minutes. And so that's not unreasonable. A response in our area is 3 engines, a ladder truck, and a squad. When they pace that out on these radios, it takes a little 2 minutes is not unreal. And so when there's a fire reported, we're already under the gun of 5, maybe even 6 minutes before we ever know about the fire and we're responding. And so response times become even that much more critical in that aspect to understand. And so then, and this is the time to flash over. And so you can see that we're working hard to get there quickly, and we're working hard to make sure that a small fire doesn't become a critical fire. And we do have fires in Fairfield. Oftentimes we get there quick enough that they remain minor, or maybe a fire extinguisher, or those fires quickly become a lot bigger fires. And we have had fatalities in Fairfield, unfortunately, to house fires. And so it's even more important to have good response times. All right, so what I want to share with you, when a lot of these questions came up last year, we did do the joint study with Carroll County and Carroll County Fire. If you're not familiar, the closest fire engine to Fairfield, other than our own, was Station 3 at Sandhill up by Midway Church. Recently, they built Station 18 at Jones Mill, And so it's a logical question, why can't Station 18 handle calls in Fairfield? So to answer some of those questions, we did this joint study with Carroll County Fire. Chief Arnold was here with our guys, along with a couple of their battalion chiefs, and we ran these studies. We picked 3 addresses. I want you guys to see how this turned out. These are the actual numbers. So our numbers are in red. The county numbers are in black. So the first one we chose was 7,500 Monticello, which is Country Club. So in that instance, now not only did we choose fairly random addresses, but we chose random times. These stations and these personnel did not know where they were going or what they were doing. We made it completely random. So in that instance, they went out at 13:15 or 1:15 in the afternoon. So to the Country Club, engine 18 took 12 minutes, engine 3 took 10 minutes, engine 11, which is our primary engine, was 2 minutes. Engine 13 was 4 minutes. Engine 13 is housed at the back gate. And so those are the actual times. When you see the other numbers, 11:04, 11:05, 11:06, 11:07, those are actually officers of Fairfield Fire Department. Some of those guys are in the room back there. And so they're responding as well. So it's pretty easy to see the incredible response times that we can have. So the second location was 11,003 Hardwood Circle. That's back here. And so engine 18 was 13 minutes. Engine 3 was 14 minutes. Engine 11 was 4, 5, 4. You see the numbers there. We can get there quickly. And we're putting certified firefighters on the scene quickly. So the third call was a little bit unique, 2158 Bell Court. So when we did the study, engine 11 was already on a call. Chief Winlett made the call. He said, let's go ahead and do the study because this is very realistic. Let's don't change it. Because our truck's on a call, let's treat it like it would happen if this was an actual emergency call. So engine 18 was there in 11 minutes. Engine 3 was 13. So engine 11 was 23 minutes, but remember, they were on a call already. So they didn't respond until they finished up a call. But the important thing to see here is engine 13, rescue 11, which is our rescue unit, and all the others turned in 4 or 5 minutes response times. So in light of having one call already, we were able to handle that call and still turn in impressive response times. And so we wanted to make that as realistic as possible. So I want to talk about our response network a little bit. Fairfield Fire Rescue is currently made up of 28 fully certified firefighters and 4 recruits. The 4 recruit volunteers in the process of completing certification as a firefighter. Takes a while. It's about 240 hours of training, along with live fire, which we just did this past Saturday. Some of our committee members were there, made some good pictures, and we put some of those out. Even the live fire training is pretty strenuous. So 3 of us are salaried, the chief, the deputy chief, and the captain. Those are full-time positions. Let me add that Captain Kevin War is also a resident homeowner. He's also full-time with Clayton County. So today he's at Clayton County. So when he's not at Clayton, he's here with us in the office. He's running calls. He's become a real vital part of our leadership team. 2 full-time are firefighters. 14 are part-time firefighters. A lot of those work for other agencies. Some of those may or may not work 1 or 2 shifts a month. Some of them do fill-in work. We're just real creative with that. And 9 are volunteers. So that's our response network.
So I just do want to be clear. The 9 volunteers are certified. We also have 4 more. So we have a total of 13 volunteers. For it to flow correctly, 9 volunteers are certified, 4 are currently.
That's right. Thank you for adding that. We have 1 firefighter that mans the fire engine at Station 11 at 1507 Lakeview Parkway, which is the front gate. That's 24/7. One of our command staff is always on call and responds to incidents with the engine 24/7. Our volunteers currently man the rescue when it's available. This has been manned every evening apart from a few days for the past year, thanks to the dedication of our volunteers. There's also an engine at Station 13, which is the back gate, that the volunteers and command staff respond in when needed. It goes on every fire. Anytime we need a second engine, it goes. So that's currently how we staff. So I want to paint this picture for you because it's an important part of who we are. So here's Station 11 near the front gate. Here's Station 13, also known as the spa office near the back gate. So they're located at basically both ends. Now, what we want to show you is where our response network lives throughout the neighborhood. Every one of these stars is a certified firefighter. That's your neighbors. Quite impressive. And so what happens is when we get a call, if it's a, I hate to say routine, but it's trouble breathing. Somebody needs their vitals checked, they need help loading the ambulance, and they're gonna go to the ER to get checked out. There's two people on an ambulance and two of us can do that job. But when it becomes critical, whether it's a critical EMS or a fire call, not only do we have this in place, but usually almost all of these guys respond to those calls. And so when the county chief asked me, how many certified firefighters can you put on a scene and how quick? I said 4 to 5 minutes, and we can do 12 to 15. And we made him a believer because we ran those test runs, and we can do that. And so because of this neighborhood response district that we have and the volunteers that we have, the EMS side becomes so much better because of the fire side, because of the firefighters, which many of those are EMTs. It becomes so much better. We had a bicycle accident in the 3000 block of Lakeview last year. And it was around 2 a.m. And if you look at our response times, which all get tracked, it's all a matter of the 911 records. They track when we go en route, they track when we go on scene, when we get the call, and when we go in service. We have 4 guys doing CPR at 2 o'clock in the morning within 4 minutes. And so that is what this response network does across the board, whether it's a fire, whether it's a cardiac arrest, whether it's a critical trauma patient like the bicycle wreck. These guys really deserve a lot of accolades for what they do. Oftentimes it's at 2 a.m. and some of these guys worked all day for 8 hours and they're going back to work at 8 a.m. But they get up and they go do their job. And it's actually a pretty incredible thing to watch. And I'm really pretty proud to be a part of that. And so it's really a pretty amazing thing that we've put together. I want to say just a little bit more about how Fairfield relates to the rest of the county. So this is Fairfield Plantation with Station 11 and Station 13. This is our response district. These are the other response districts within the county. So this is Station 3 at Sand Hill near Midway Church. This is Station 18 at Jones Mill. The rest of these are all county stations. The center obviously would be the city of Carrollton. They're 21, 22, 23, and 24. So I want to say just a little bit about how we relate to the rest of that big picture and the rest of the county. So if there was a fire in Fairfield due to our mutual aid agreement with the county, they're sending units to back us up. So on a typical fire in Fairfield, there's engine 11 and 13, which are ours, engine 18, engine 3, and ladder 9, which is housed at Villarica, just north of I-20, if you know where that fire station is. That's typical. So one thing I want to say is Station 3 at Sand Hill, they run 1,600 calls a year. They stay busy. And so that's 1,600 times that they're not there and they're not available for us. And So not only that, when a fire happens in other districts in the county, they leave their district and go help their units. And the county units have 2 firefighters per engine. Remember that response network and how many guys at Fairfield put on the scene and how quickly. If we weren't here, that's 8 guys coming from the county. We have way over that just as Fairfield. And so we have a lot to be proud of. So let's just look at this scenario. Units that would be dispatched to a fire call inside Fairfield Station 3 is unavailable. So then we're gonna get engine 11, engine 13, engine 18, engine 9 and ladder 9, which engine 9 is housed with ladder 9 in Villa Rica. That's quite a run from north of I-20. So another scenario, units that will be dispatched to a fire call inside Fairfield at Station 3 and 18 are unavailable. So let's say 3 and 18 are both out on the call. We don't really know how many 18 are gonna run yet because they're so new. But 18 was designed to take some of the call load off of 3 with the 1,600 calls a year. They're taking some of the calls off of Station 5 at Clem, Station 8 at Whitesburg. And so they're running calls south of here and even into the city of Carrollton at times. And so it's not unrealistic to say that engine 3 and engine 18 are on a call at the same time. That happens very often. And so if that's the case, we have Station 9 out of Villa Rica and Station 15 out of Center Point, which is near Sharps Creek School, if you know that part of the county. And so it's quite a run for anybody to get here if we weren't here, if we didn't have that response network and didn't have a fire department here in-house.
It takes engine 15 minutes just to get to the front gate.
That's right. And then, of course, it takes them a while to get through the gate. They have to clear traffic. Units would be dispatched to a fire call inside Fairfield, if stations 3, 18, and 9 were not available. Like I said, very common. It's not even uncommon that for every fire station on the north end of the county, which is the busiest part of the county, it's not uncommon for all those fire engines to be on a call at once, because they're responding with ambulances just like we are. And so in that picture, the closest responding stations are Station 15. And now we're looking at Carrollton coming to help. Those are the next closest. And so we feel like not only is it critical for us to be here, it's more critical than it's ever been for us to be here. Fairfield's growing, a lot of new houses being built, a lot of new construction. And so we're committed. We're dedicated to the residents of Fairfield Plantation, provide a fire department that's first class and one that the community be proud of. I'm extremely proud of where this fire department's come in a lot of years. I hope the residents can be proud of what we have, and that's what we're working toward. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Winlet. He's got an illustration that we're going to do for you guys, and then we'll look at answering some questions. So what they're going to do is called quick dress. So any firefighter, Captain Keith Knowles is going to come up and do it with him. So all across the nation, any firefighter that's going to test to be certified at Firefighter 1 is required to quick dress. And what that means is they have to go from no gear on whatsoever to fully breathing air, ready to fight fire in under 2 minutes. And so they're going to illustrate that for you guys today. And then Chief Winlet, after that, been a lot of questions about our golf tournament coming up, and he's going to talk a little bit about what we are doing with those funds, what the goal is and why. And so just some informative things for you guys. Are you gonna comment? Okay.
Put a timer on the screen.
On the screen. One on his.
Oh, up there on that screen.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Oh, duh.
No pressure. Pete. Good thing those interested by the beer, right? So. She's got it back.
I got a timer. Oh, where- there you
We see you putting it on the screen. Yeah.
So before we start, this is a requirement, 2 minutes, right? Everybody understands that. In order for us to get dressed, we have to have all this on at the scene. We're not allowed to wear our gear with a pack inside the truck. So you gotta remember that. Yeah, it takes 5 minutes to get there. We still gotta get dressed. So that's what you get the 2 minutes for. Okay? A lot of times people rush this aspect, but it's so important and vital to everything we do. So on y'all go, we'll just do it.
go. On your mark. Get set. Go. Fifteen seconds.
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
48, 49 seconds, 50 seconds. It's longer to get out of bed. 1 minute.
Wow, just like a child. As you'll see, they're dressed, that's not. Every piece of skin is covered up. I mean, around the mask and neck areas is, any exposed skin is gonna burn.
So real quick, while we have all this on. So while I have all this on, Lieutenant Hyde and Lieutenant Senator Crocker. So we talked about the golf tournament. Y'all saw our statement about us needing new air packs, air bottles, we needed packs too, but. So. The new bottles that we're looking at, they're called quick release, quick snap, and they look like this. What we currently have looks like this. They're threaded in, okay? What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show you how quick we can change our bottles. Me and Captain Nose just came out of fire, but we need more air, we need to do it real quick, real fast, right?
You
So,
may wanna tell everybody how quick that air goes out too, while you need to be.
yeah, air goes out fast, okay? So what I have in my bottle right now is 45-minute bottle. That's a 30-minute bottle.
Doesn't last.
It doesn't last as long as you think it does. You're overexerting yourself. Now, we can sit here all day. Probably, I can sit here for an hour. Up here with this bottle, I'm not doing anything. Now, when you start working and start doing stuff, you can't do that. So, we just come out of a fire, we need a new bottle. So what I want y'all to do, take them off, lay them on the ground, put them on, okay? You ready?
Probably needs a new one.
Yeah.
When you run back in, all I do is I turn it on. I go back inside. I keep-
Still trying to get this. So hopefully you guys can hear it through the mask, but that's what our funds for the golf tournament are gonna be earmarked for, is more of those quick change bottles. Our guys run out of air quickly when they're working hard, and that's important to get that changed out, and so that's the goal. Those are expensive, and so our goal is to use that money. Do we want to try to take a couple of questions, or I don't want to get into the board's time tonight, but any questions for the fire department before we turn it over to the board of directors?
I'm gonna give you want me to do a quick assault from now?
Yes.
Were y'all able to understand me pretty good with that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I could understand you very well,
Okay, I'm sorry.
and the presentation was awesome. And one of your early comments had to do with, well, people wonder, why do we need you? What are you doing? So forth. You just laid out an awesome display of the contributions that go on here. Now, the missing part is I've never seen anybody cutting trees or the fire or fixing responding to a car crash or giving CPR in the plantation grass. You're hiding the best marketing thing you could do. Now,
Yes, sir.
is there any reason why?
Yes, sir.
There's something that's not allowed?
Well, no, that's a very good question, and we're very careful with that because we're bound by HIPAA laws. And so if we were to pick something out, even an address or something that were to identify a patient, we would be in trouble legally. And so we have to be very careful with that. But
Show pictures without address.
yes, sir, and more recently, with the advent of social media, we're trying to get better to put things out on social media so you guys know what we're doing, what we're up
Did
to.
you count how many people are here?
I did not.
There's 1,800 homes here.
Yes, sir.
This is like nothing.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
you're missing a big opportunity.
yes, sir. Thank you.
So how full are you with golf?
All right, so,
You got, how many do you need? How many do you?
all right, so currently we have 16 host sponsors, in which some of those sponsors did the $1,000 sponsorship, which means they get a team and a hole and a few other added benefits. So we currently have 2 holes available to sponsor. I'm putting out tomorrow, and it's actually back there on our flyer, 3 new sponsorship opportunities. Basically, you can be a golf ball sponsor, and so on the golf ball sponsor, basically it's gonna be $1,500. You get your logo on the golf ball. Every single player that plays in our tournament will get 4 golf balls with your logo on it. It's just kind of an added benefit to playing, really. It makes people want to come out, and also benefits the golf course, right? The more people we get to the golf course, more funds raised, right? So that's our goal here. It's not only gonna benefit us getting new bottles, like y'all saw, but it's also benefiting us as a Fairfield for our golf course also. A lot of people don't come in here because actually, I talked with someone 2 days ago, said, "Oh, I heard Fairfield's golf course was terrible." I said, "Well, who'd you hear it from?" He said, "A guy who said he played there 10 years ago." I said, "Yeah, well, come out now." I mean, honestly, our golf course has truly improved over the years. I love going out here, and I think this is a great way to do it, especially with us working together in it. And y'all support, we appreciate it greatly. Currently we have, I think we have 10 teams, 10 or 11 teams set up. I'm not at my computer, so I don't have it on me, but 10 or 11 teams, and so we're on good track. I think we're gonna reach our goal for sure, as far as these bottles, and if we do, we're just gonna buy more bottles. That's our end goal, so that way we have more bottles to train with also.
What's your goal?
So our goal is, see if I got that paper, 16,000 roughly. So with that, it costs $13.50 for 1 bottle. So $1,350 is how much it costs for 1 air bottle. Also the benefit of the quick release bottles they can also, they have the threaded side as well. So we can still use those with our other packs. They're interchangeable. Now with just the threaded one, it doesn't have the quick connect. So that's the benefit of having both on that one bottle. It'll save us money in the long run. So with that being said, with it being $1,350 per bottle, you're looking at 16 and some change $1,000 for the 12-pack bottles that we need.
What most fire departments have now.
So almost everyone's going to the snap change. It's extremely beneficial. It took many years for, what's the saying, chief? Two things firemen don't like, change and everything staying the same. So basically, everybody liked the threaded, right? Because that's what everybody was used to. So nobody wanted to go to the quick connects. Well, then all of a sudden, everybody started going to the quick connects, and they're like, man, that makes so much more sense to walk out, change my bottle, and walk back in 2 seconds. And then now pretty much everybody's going that way. It's very rare to see a department even, first off, go buy a brand new pack that doesn't have it and even have them in store anymore. So.
I think there's a question out there.
Yes, ma'am.
What are your plans on having more CPR certification classes?
So we do plan on having 2 more CPR classes this year. With us we had our CPR class at the beginning of the year. We ended up having several not show up, but then it ended up being a chaotic day also. We had a cardiac arrest. We had someone pass out in the class at the exact same time. So again, going back to the response networks, we were able to take care of the student in the class that passed out and respond to the cardiac arrest. And to this day, last we heard, he was still alive. So, and still taught the class. The class didn't stop. So, and that's because of our response network. But
I found out about an after effect when I saw it on on Facebook,
yes, ma'am.
So how are you gonna let us know when,
So,
how did I miss it?
so follow us on Facebook.
Well, I do.
Okay, well, I post every single thing that we do on our Facebook group, and then additionally try to share it to the groups that I'm a part of also. That's our best way. We also get with Dakota. He shares it on Fairfield's page. He puts out flyers for us. So we try to get everybody we can, and social media being the way it is, that's kind of what we gear towards more, but we still print flyers. We put flyers in the mailbox thing at the gate as much as we can, but yeah, I mean, we try to send it out as much as we can. It is in the emails. Unfortunately, sometimes it just gets overlooked. It is, but.
Because there's a lot of calls from me then. When are you gonna have it?
We'll definitely do that right away. I just want to take a minute. Charles asked me to say a little bit about our recent meeting with the county. Just a few weeks ago, Maureen, Arnold, myself, Deputy Chief Winlet, our council, county attorney, our county commissioner, county fire chief, who am I leaving out? It was a group that met, and what it allowed us to do is talk a little bit about the needs of our fire department, because what we do is important. We feel like we do a lot with a little, but it's still an expensive proposition. We shared a lot of those needs with the county. And the takeaway from that meeting is that the county commissioners are open to helping the Fairfield Fire Department. They want to know more about our needs, and that's kind of where we left it. But we look forward to developing that relationship even more. Our relationship with the county is better than it's ever been, and so we're proud of that. So I'm gonna turn it over to the board for that. Yes, sir.
What fire prevention devices do y'all recommend homeowners?
Fire prevention?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it just depends on what you can have, but the most important thing that you can have is a good working fire extinguisher.
Do the fire blankets work?
The fire blankets work, sure, they do work. They're a little bit expensive, but I recommend the fire extinguisher and have an escape plan, because you never know when it's gonna happen. You can't forecast that, and so it's good, and go over it with your family or kids or grandkids or anybody that's staying with you. Always have a good escape plan, so.
So one of the
Good
other things
question.
I learned from you in this presentation is the close your bedroom doors
I always leave my doors open, that's one of the most important things, is to close your bedroom door because of the whole fire.
That's right, just closing a door, just closing a bedroom door can create a survivable space that would not otherwise, you could not otherwise. So sleep with your doors closed at night. I know parents with young kids, that's hard to do. But it's safer, especially for the kids, to have your bedroom doors closed at night. So,
What about home fire extinguishers? Do y'all have a recommendation of where you can buy good ones that you can have rebuilt if you have to use it, or?
Home Depot, buy the pricier ones that can be refilled, and West Georgia Fire Extinguisher can take care of that for you. They'll do that for you. Yeah, and if not, just the under the sink ones can go a long way.
Do they,
Yeah.
Training.
They do expire, absolutely, they do. Yeah, and hours around have to be serviced once a year. I think I saw another question in the back.
like, to pick that up and pull that off and actively use it? My toaster oven caught on fire about 15 years ago, and I didn't do it, I had to bring it, so I just threw it in the backyard. They sell cans for about $15.
Yep.
Do the same thing, and you just have to squirt it like hairspray.
That's right, that's right. It's better to have a couple of those than nothing, that's for sure. They have a couple of fire extinguishers that are like an aerosol spray can. It's easier for the ladies. Yeah. I think I saw another question over here.
Sam, I just wanted to bring up, so they are having the golf tournament to raise this money, but, I was very fortunate to go to their live burn, training on Saturday. Let me tell you, they are in extreme heat. They train for 3 hours. If you ever are out and you would like to pick up a case of water, a case of Gatorade, anything, and just drop it by to them, they would be so appreciative, because they really go through it when they are doing these training sessions.
I'm gonna ask one just, cause I've only been here a couple of years, 3 years now, living here, so I don't know the thing. So our fire department is fully funded by the HOA.
That is correct.
We
that-
get no support of any kind.
Except for, we are eligible for, government grants. And so just 2 years ago, we got $86,000 in turnout gear and radios. And so we just applied for several other grants last week. And so that is a vital part of our funding. But aside from that, we're 100% funded from our HOA rules.
Some of our medical supplies, because we piggyback off the county's mutual agreement with West Georgia Ambulance. We purchase the initial supplies, but once we use them on the scene, West Georgia replaces them.
That's right.
So some of that, from that standpoint, can be coming from elsewhere.
Right, and I mean, do we have somebody, I mean, maybe the board has to answer that question. Do we have somebody that's actively, constantly looking for these grants to help us out?
Oh, yeah,
To
that's,
help
that's,
subsidize that? I mean, like.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that's us.
yes, that's a part of what we do.
So we currently have, I believe, 7 grants out right now. The ASG grant that we got year before last, 2022. Usually they don't look at you if you've been within past 2 years. But other than that, we've put in a grant for firehouse subs. We put in a grant for Walmart,
Yamaha.
Callaway. We have several grants out there, so we're constantly trying to, because we have to spend the money too, right? So, because we live in here, we're constantly trying to counterbalance that and not constantly come up here and ask, hey, we need 20 grand here, we need 10 grand here. We're hoping that these grants will kick off. And we get them, we've gotten several over the years. And also another thing that the county has done for us, they've given us the rescue we have. They give us the engine 11 that we use. I think they bought 5 radios.
6 radios.
6 radios.
Mhm.
So, we're constantly looking for better ways to save all of us money.
So again, just to build on, coming out of that meeting we had with the county, it was like a month and a half ago. We're really committed to kind of sharing information, leveraging any procurement purchases that we can do with them. We're sharing some of our capital needs to see, if there's ever a trade-off. Now, they can't give us cash, Like they can't pay for any salaries, but we're trying to do everything we can to see how we can help each other out. So, I mean, the relationship goes a long ways too.
Absolutely.
How long have existing trucks been bought?
That's a hard question to answer.
24 hours.
I'd be scared to say. Engine 13, the International probably has a good 10 years on it. There's something needs to be replaced.
All right, I think we probably got
All across the country, I read that,